The communications blackout from New Haven lasted exactly 47 hours before Earth Command acknowledged something catastrophic had occurred. The colony of 1.2 million souls simply stopped transmitting, no distress signal, no evacuation protocols, just silence. Commander James Reeves stood in the observation deck of the UES Valiant, watching the approach to New Haven's star system. 23 warships had made the 3-week journey through hyperspace, the largest military deployment humanity had ever assembled. They expected pirates, maybe a rogue AI uprising, possibly even a reactor meltdown. What they found was genocide. New Haven's orbital stations hung lifeless, hull breaches exposing frozen corridors to vacuum. The planet below showed signs of systematic bombardment, every major city reduced to radioactive glass. Agricultural zones burned. Water treatment facilities destroyed. The targeting had been precise, methodical, designed to ensure nothing survived. "Sir, we're detecting wreckage consistent with Kryn vessels," Lieutenant Park reported, his voice tight. "Multiple destroyer-class ships. They didn't even try to hide it. The Kryn Dominion. Humanity's neighbors for the past 30 years. Not friendly, but not hostile either, or so everyone had believed. They'd established trade agreements, exchanged cultural databases, even collaborated on deep space mapping projects. The Treaty of Proxima V had guaranteed mutual non-aggression." Reeves descended to the planet in a dropship, against the advice of his tactical officers. He needed to see with his own eyes. The capital city of promise had housed 400,000 people. Now it was a crater 5 kilometers wide. His radiation suit's dosimeter clicked steadily, measuring levels that would kill an unprotected human in minutes. They found evidence in the outskirts, recording devices that had survived the blast. The footage showed Kryn warriors moving through residential districts with flamethrowers, executing anyone who fled the orbital strikes. Children. Elderly. Medical personnel waving white flags. The Kryn burned them all. Why? Park whispered as they reviewed the recordings aboard the Valiant. "We had peace. What could possibly justify this?" Reeves replayed one segment, a Kryn officer speaking into a captured human camera, his translator converting the words. "Let this be a message to humanity. You expand too far, too fast. The galaxy has limits. Learn them, or join your colony in extinction." A warning. They'd murdered 1.2 million people to send Earth a message about territorial boundaries, about humanity knowing its place in the cosmic order. Reeves transmitted his report back to Earth via quantum relay. Every image. Every recording. Every charred corpse. The journey would take 3 weeks, but he already knew what Earth's response would be. Humanity had tried peaceful coexistence. They'd tried diplomacy and cultural exchange. The Kryn had responded with genocide. Now Earth would teach the galaxy a different lesson. Admiral Victoria Kane stood before the United Earth Council, her uniform crisp despite the exhaustion etched into her face. The chamber's holocron displays showed the devastation of New Haven on repeat, images that had traumatized an entire planet. "Military options, Admiral," Council Chair Marcus Webb demanded. His usual political composure had cracked. His niece had lived on New Haven. "The Kryn Dominion controls 17 star systems," Kane began, activating a tactical display. "Their military consists of approximately 400 combat vessels, 43 orbital defense platforms, and a standing army of 6 million soldiers. Their home system, Kryn Prime, houses 8.2 billion citizens across 4 planets. You're suggesting total war," Counselor Amara Johnson stated. "I'm suggesting proportional response," Kane corrected. "International law is clear. Genocide demands accountability." 8 billion lives, Johnson pressed. "Including civilians. Children. They considered our children at New Haven," Webb said coldly. "Every single one." The debate raged for 6 hours. Philosophers spoke of moral high ground. Economists warned of resource depletion. Military advisors presented strike scenarios. Religious leaders prayed for wisdom. Dr. Robert Chen, Earth's chief xenopsychologist, provided the critical insight. I've studied 40 years of Kryn cultural exchanges. They respect only strength. To them, mercy signals weakness. If we respond with anything less than overwhelming force, they'll interpret it as invitation to attack again. So we become monsters to fight monsters? Johnson challenged. We become survivors, Chen replied. The Kryn broadcast their massacre deliberately. Every spacefaring species in this sector received those transmissions. If humanity appears weak, we'll face extinction within a generation. But if we demonstrate the cost of attacking us. He let the implication hang. The vote was 27-8 in favor of Operation Righteous Fury. Kane received her orders that evening. You are authorized to utilize any and all military assets to neutralize the Kryn threat. Rules of engagement: total war. Objective: ensure the Kryn Dominion cannot threaten humanity again. Within 24 hours, every human warship in space began converging on rally points. Defense contractors opened sealed warehouses containing weapons that had never been deployed. Theoretical physics labs activated projects that existed only in classified databases. The mobilization was unprecedented. Destroyer squadrons. Carrier battle groups. Troop transports carrying mechanized divisions. The fleet that assembled would have been unimaginable a year ago, but humanity had been preparing for interstellar conflict since first contact. They just hoped it would never be necessary. Kane addressed her forces via quantum broadcast. The Kryn believe we are weak because we choose peace. They believe we are soft because we value life. They are about to learn that humanity's capacity for peace is matched only by our capacity for war. When we're finished, the galaxy will remember New Haven. And they'll remember the price of spilling human blood. The Armada entered hyperspace in waves, heading toward Kryn-controlled territory. 63 warships. 15 support vessels. For experimental weapons platforms that most of the crews didn't even know existed. Earth's children were dead. Now came the reckoning. The Kryn border system of Talaxor detected the human fleet 42 minutes before impact. Their automated defenses activated, orbital platforms swiveling to track the incoming vessels. 14 Kryn destroyers scrambled to intercept. They never had a chance. Captain Diana Foster commanded the UES Retribution, a heavy cruiser at the fleet's vanguard. Her tactical display showed enemy positions crystallizing from sensor data. Target their defensive satellites first. Let's announce our arrival. The Retribution's railgun spoke, magnetically accelerated tungsten rods traveling at 3% light speed. The first orbital platform exploded, then the second, then the third. In 90 seconds, Talaxor's entire defensive network became expanding debris clouds. The Kryn destroyers opened fire with plasma cannons, weapons that had terrorized their neighbors for centuries. The superheated bolts would have vaporized unshielded vessels. Foster's ship tanked 3 direct hits, shield capacitors flaring blue-white, and kept advancing. Return fire. Show them what human engineering looks like. Directed energy weapons, humanity's latest innovation, lanced out. Coherent light beams that didn't disperse over distance, each carrying enough power to crack a mountain. The first Kryn destroyer lost its forward section. The second split down the middle. The third tried to flee into hyperspace. A missile salvo caught it during the jump sequence, and it simply ceased to exist. 11 destroyers remained. 10 minutes later, none did. Foster studied the planet below, Talaxor 3, home to 200,000 Kryn military personnel and their families. Orders were clear: evacuate civilians, eliminate military capability. She opened a broadcast on all frequencies: Kryn forces, you have 2 hours to evacuate non-combatants. After that, we destroy every military installation on this planet. The Kryn commander responded with defiance. Humans are prey pretending to be predators. We'll grind your bones. Foster cut the transmission. They chose. Commence bombardment. The bombardment was surgical. Military bases. Weapons factories. Spaceports. Kinetic strikes turned each target into a crater, but civilian zones remained untouched. The Kryn hadn't shown New Haven that mercy, but Foster wasn't Kryn. After Talaxor fell, the fleet split into hunter-killer groups. 5 systems fell in the first week. The pattern repeated: overwhelming force, evacuation windows, precision strikes. Humanity wasn't massacring, they were dismantling. Every Kryn military asset systematically destroyed. The Kryn responded with desperate counterattacks. A strike force ambushed the UES Dauntless near a gas giant, swarming it with 40 fighters. The Dauntless deployed drone swarms, autonomous combat units that thought and reacted faster than any organic pilot. 40 Kryn fighters became 40 fireballs in 3 minutes. News of the human advance rippled through Kryn space, carrying a terror their species hadn't experienced in generations. These weren't the peaceful explorers who'd requested trade agreements. These were apex predators unleashed. Admiral Kane monitored progress from her flagship, the UES Reckoning. Her chief of staff, Commander Price, reviewed casualty reports. We've lost 3 ships, 247 personnel. Kryn military losses are approaching 200,000. And New Haven lost 1.2 million, Kane said flatly. We're not finished. The fleet pushed deeper into Kryn territory, an unstoppable tide of human vengeance. Each victory sent the same message: attack humanity at your peril. Dr. Sarah Mitchell had spent 15 years working in the Theoretical Weapons Division, a department so classified that Congress didn't know its budget. Her team studied physics at the extreme edge of human understanding, places where mathematics suggested possibilities that no ethical government would ever explore. Until New Haven. "Show me again," Admiral Kane demanded, standing in the laboratory complex buried 3 kilometers beneath Colorado's mountains. Mitchell activated the holographic display. Standard stellar mechanics: stars maintain equilibrium between gravitational collapse and fusion pressure. They're remarkably stable systems. But that stability has vulnerabilities. The simulation showed a yellow dwarf star, similar to Kryn Prime. Mathematical overlays traced magnetic field lines, fusion dynamics, convection currents. "We can induce catastrophic instability," Mitchell continued. "A device planted in the star's core disrupts the natural fusion process. It creates a cascade effect. In English, Doctor. We can make the star explode." The room fell silent except for the quantum processors humming in their cooling tanks. Kane stared at the simulation, watching the star tear itself apart, its planets consumed by the expanding shell of plasma. "How many people live in the Kryn Prime system?" Kane asked quietly. 8 billion. 4 planets, 16 major orbital habitats, hundreds of stations and mining operations. "And you can guarantee this will work?" Mitchell nodded. "We've tested it in simulation 10,000 times. Success rate is 99.97%. The device is loaded aboard the Erebus, waiting for authorization." Kane turned to the ethics officer who'd accompanied her, Colonel Rodriguez. "Your assessment?" Rodriguez looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past month. "What the Kryn did was genocide. What we're contemplating is, there's no word for it." Species sighed. "We'd be erasing their entire civilization." "They were erasing ours, one colony at a time," Kane countered. Dr. Chen's intelligence confirms they plan to hit 3 more colonies within the year. This is self-defense on a species level. Is it defense if we kill 8 billion civilians? Their children? Rodriguez pressed. It's a deterrent, Kane said. Every species in this galaxy needs to understand that humanity will go to any length to protect its people. Today it's 8 billion Kryn. Tomorrow, it ensures 8 trillion future humans never face genocide. Mitchell interrupted, there is one alternative. We could target their outer system, destroy their infrastructure, force surrender without the mass casualty event. How long until they rebuild? Kane asked. 50 years. Maybe less. And in 50 years, they attack again. And again. Until one day they win. Kane closed her eyes. New Haven's children deserve justice. Future colonies deserve safety. Activate the device. The authorization codes went out through quantum channels. 3,000 light-years away, the UES Erebus, a stealth vessel designed for exactly this impossible mission, received its orders. Captain Thomas Wade read the message 3 times, hoping the words would change. They didn't. Helm, set course for Kryn Prime's star. Maximum stealth protocols. His crew of 12 worked in silence. Everyone knew what they carried in the cargo bay, a cylindrical device 3 meters long, weighing 2 tons, capable of killing a sun. The Erebus took 6 days to reach the star, threading between Kryn patrol routes, sensors absorbing rather than reflecting detection sweeps. At 0300 hours ship time, they reached insertion range. Deploy the device, Wade ordered. Magnetic launchers sent the weapon on its final trajectory. It would take 14 hours to reach the star's core, burrowing through layers of plasma until it reached the fusion heart. Wade opened a final transmission to Admiral Kane, package delivered. May God forgive us. The Kryn Supreme Council convened in emergency session as reports flooded in from the frontier systems. Military bases destroyed. Fleets decimated. The humans were advancing with terrifying efficiency. War Leader Croth slammed his clawed fist against the council table. How? They were explorers. Merchants. We studied them for decades, soft beings who valued peace above strength. Intelligence Master Vorn projected tactical data. Our analysis was flawed. Humans choose peace, but that doesn't mean they lack the capacity for war. Their military technology exceeds ours in every category. Shielding. Weapons. Tactics. We awaken something we don't understand. Then we negotiate, Council Speaker Mara suggested. Offer reparations, territory, whatever they demand. I tried, Vorn said grimly. 3 separate overtures. They ignore every communication. They want blood, not diplomacy. Croth reviewed the latest intelligence. Human forces were 48 hours from the inner colonies. At this rate, they'd reach Kryn Prime within a week. Activate the Fortress Protocol. Pull every military asset back to the home system. If they want our worlds, they'll drown in their own blood taking them. Orders went out across the Dominion. Fleets retreated. Armies consolidated. The Kryn prepared for a last stand in their home system, where 8 billion citizens waited, unaware of the doom already planted in their star. Aboard the UES Reckoning, Admiral Kane received confirmation that the stellar device had reached its target. The countdown had begun, 72 hours until the star's fusion process became unstable. Commander Price approached cautiously. Admiral, we're receiving civilian transmissions from Kryn Prime. Schools. Hospitals. Entertainment broadcasts. They're just living their lives. I'm aware. We could evacuate them. Give warning. Kane turned, her face carved from stone. And give their military time to locate and disable the device? Risk it failing? Condemn future human colonies to the same fate as New Haven? There are 8 billion people down there. There were 1.2 million on New Haven. Kane's control cracked. Don't you think I know what we're doing? Don't you think I see their faces every time I close my eyes? But I'm not choosing between Kryn lives and human morality, I'm choosing between Kryn lives and human survival. She pulled up the recordings from New Haven, forcing Price to watch. Kryn soldiers burning families. Execution squads in hospital wards. Children crying for parents who couldn't answer. They did this while their civilians lived in peace, Kane said. Their people watched entertainment while our people died screaming. That's the species we're facing, one that wages genocide while maintaining comfortable domestic life. We end this now, decisively, or we condemn our descendants to endless war. Price said nothing more. There was nothing more to say. The human fleet assembled at the edge of the Kryn Prime system, 60 warships holding position. They didn't engage the desperate defensive forces arrayed before them. They simply waited. Kane opened a broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring every Kryn and every listening species in the sector would hear. The Kryn Dominion chose to exterminate New Haven as a demonstration of power. In 72 hours, humanity's response will be complete. We do not make war lightly. But when forced to fight, we fight to win. Remember New Haven. Remember the price of genocide. On Kryn Prime, panic spread as translations circulated. The military assured citizens they could repel any invasion. The government urged calm. But deep in the star above them, exotic particles were disrupting fusion reactions, creating instabilities that built exponentially. The countdown continued. 52 hours remained when the transmission reached Admiral Kane's flagship. The identifier showed it originated from Kryn Prime, but the voice speaking wasn't Kryn. This is Professor Emma Walsh, University of Kryn Prime, Department of Xenolinguistics. I'm a human citizen who chose to stay when tensions rose. Please, Admiral, I know about New Haven. I know what they did. But there are 200,000 humans living in this system, citizens, researchers, families who made lives here before the war. And 8 billion Kryn civilians who had nothing to do with the massacre. Kane closed her eyes. Of course there were humans in the system. Academics. Traders. Families built across species lines. War was never clean. Professor Walsh, evacuation protocols are. There's no time for full evacuation, and you know it. Admiral, I've lived among the Kryn for 15 years. The civilians are terrified. They don't understand why this is happening. Their government lied to them, told them New Haven was a military target, propaganda to justify human aggression. Their ignorance doesn't change what their military did. No, but punishing billions for the crimes of thousands makes us the monsters. Admiral, I'm looking at the star right now. My instruments detect anomalous readings. What did you do? The silence stretched. Kane glanced at her ethics officer, Rodriguez, who looked like he might be sick. You weaponized their son, Walsh whispered. Dear God. You can't. Please. My daughter is here. She's 7 years old, Admiral. Her name is Lucy. She loves Kryn music and plays with Kryn children and doesn't understand species or war or genocide. How is killing her justice for New Haven? Kane's hand trembled over the abort codes. One transmission could shut down the device, stop the cascade, prevent the unthinkable. But in her mind's eye, she saw the recordings from New Haven, Kryn soldiers methodically executing children who also didn't understand genocide. How many Lucys died on New Haven? Kane asked quietly. That doesn't justify creating more. We're supposed to be better than them. We're supposed to survive. Professor, I will give you 48 hours to evacuate every human from that system. Commandeer ships, broadcast on emergency frequencies, do whatever it takes. But the Kryn military chose this path. I'm seeing it through. And the Kryn civilians? Tell them to blame their war leader Kroth. He started this war. Kane terminated the connection and immediately issued evacuation orders. Every human vessel within range diverted to Kryn Prime. It would save perhaps 50,000 humans, less than a quarter of those present. The rest were too dispersed across the system, too far from evacuation points. We could give them more time, Price suggested. 72 hours, 96. And every hour we delay, Kryn forces have time to locate the device. They're already scanning the star with every sensor they have. The longer we wait, the greater the chance this fails and New Haven's sacrifice means nothing. In the Kryn Supreme Council chambers, War Leader Croth watched the emergency data streams. Their scientists had detected the anomaly in the star's core. Recovery teams were being assembled, equipment designed to operate in stellar environments. How long until we can disable the device? He demanded. 40 hours to reach it, assuming our ships survive the radiation. Another 12 to analyze and disable, the lead scientist reported. That's cutting it close. War Leader, perhaps we should evacuate. Evacuate 8 billion people in 50 hours? Impossible. We stand and fight. If we can't save our sun, we die as Kryn, standing against human aggression. Croth refused to acknowledge the irony. Orders went out, every capable ship redirected to the star. Crews volunteered for suicide missions, knowing the radiation would kill them even if they succeeded. They were fighting for their home, their families, their species' survival. The human fleet watched the desperate activity. Kane had expected this. Deploy countermeasures. Nothing reaches that star. Human fighter craft intercepted Kryn recovery vessels. It wasn't combat, it was execution. The Kryn ships, designed for construction not battle, stood no chance against military interceptors. One by one, they fell. On Kryn Prime, civilians watched the sky, finally understanding that something was terribly wrong. 12 hours remained. The evacuation had saved 47,000 humans and, surprisingly, 2 million Kryn civilians, those who'd listened to Professor Walsh's warnings and fought their way onto departing vessels. The human fleet permitted them passage, scanning for military personnel but otherwise allowing the refugee ships to flee. Admiral Kane stood on the Reckoning's observation deck, watching Kryn Prime star through filtered displays. It looked normal to the naked eye, but sensors showed the catastrophic instability building in its core. Fusion reactions accelerating uncontrollably. Magnetic fields collapsing. The star was dying, and taking its system with it. Admiral, final communication from War Leader Croth, the comms officer reported. Kane nodded. Let's hear it. The Kryn commander appeared on screen, his scales scarred from a lifetime of military service. Admiral Kane. I understand now that we made a strategic error. Humanity is stronger than we calculated. I request terms of surrender. We will withdraw from all disputed territories, pay reparations, submit to war crime tribunals. Please, call off your weapon. It can't be called off, Kane said simply. The cascade is self-sustaining now. Your sun will explode in approximately 11 hours. Croth's composure cracked. Then you're condemning billions of civilians. Like you condemned New Haven civilians? Kane interrupted. You broadcast their execution to intimidate us. You murdered children to send a message about territorial boundaries. Did you offer them terms of surrender? Evacuation windows? Or did you just burn them? I was following orders. So were your soldiers. So am I. The difference is, our orders protect humanity. Yours nearly destroyed us. Kane leaned forward. War Leader, this is the lesson, you don't get to commit genocide and then claim victim status when consequences arrive. You started this war with massacre. We're ending it with justice. This isn't justice, it's extinction. No. Your species will survive, the 2 million evacuees, the populations in your frontier colonies were leaving intact. You'll rebuild. Diminished, humbled, but alive. More mercy than you showed New Haven. Crotha's image flickered. History will remember you as the monster who murdered a solar system. History is written by survivors, war leader. And humanity will survive. The transmission ended. Kane returned to watching the star, feeling the weight of 8 billion lives counting down. Rodriguez joined her, both silent. Do you believe it? Rodriguez finally asked. That this was necessary? I believe that if we'd shown weakness, we'd be extinct within a century. I believe the galaxy needed to see that humanity cannot be bullied or massacred without consequences. I believe New Haven's dead deserve justice. She paused. Whether I'm right or wrong, history will decide. I just pray I can live with being the person who made this choice. At T-0, the stellar device completed its work. Deep in Kryn Prime's sun, the carefully balanced fusion reactions became a runaway catastrophe. In milliseconds, the star's core temperature spiked to unprecedented levels. The outer layers, no longer held in equilibrium, collapsed inward. Then exploded outward. The star became a supernova, an artificial one, triggered by human hands. The shockwave expanded at a significant fraction of light speed, carrying plasma heated to hundreds of millions of degrees. Kryn Prime, closest to the star, vaporized in seconds. The other 3 inhabited planets followed. Orbital stations, mining facilities, defensive platforms, all consumed. 8 billion Kryn died, most never knowing what killed them. It was instantaneous, at least. More mercy than they'd shown New Haven. The human fleet, positioned safely outside the blast radius, recorded everything. The images would be transmitted to every known spacefaring species. This is what happens when you attack humanity. 3 months later, Admiral Kane stood before the United Earth Council. The war was over. The Kryn Dominion had surrendered unconditionally, their surviving leadership facing war crime tribunals even as they accused humanity of the same. Operation Righteous Fury is concluded, Kane reported. The Kryn military is dismantled. Their remaining colonies are under provisional governance. Humanity's security is ensured. The council chambers were silent. No celebration. No victory speeches. Just exhaustion and moral weight. Was it worth it? Counselor Johnson asked quietly. Kane thought of New Haven's dead. Of Lucy Walsh, Professor Walsh's daughter, who'd made it onto an evacuation ship. Of the 8 billion Kryn who hadn't. Ask me in 100 years, Kane said. When humanity still exists, when no other species dares attempt genocide against us, when our colonies expand safely across the stars. Ask me then if New Haven's justice was worth the price. She submitted her resignation that evening. Some burdens were too heavy to carry while holding command. But across the galaxy, humanity's message was received. They were peaceful by choice, not weakness. And if forced to war, they would bring consequences beyond imagination. New Haven was avenged. The cost would echo through history forever.